Hi, I'm Gabriella and welcome to Digital Spy. In this video we are going through our top 20 films of 2021. Did your favorite make the cut? You're going to have to watch to find out. For ease of organization, we are going to enumerate these films by their UK release date. So the last film I mentioned will be the film most recently released. One Night in Miami. One Night in Miami is a beautiful stage play turned film that takes a little bit of time to get going, but once it does, you are going to be absolutely sucked in by the incredible acting and the dynamic writing that takes place in this film. It's definitely unmissable, and even though it came out back at the beginning of 2021, it should be top on your list to watch if you haven't seen it already.
I'm the new heavyweight champion of the world, and I don't even have a scratch on my face. Oh my goodness.
Cash.
Why am I so pretty?
Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar. So Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar is one of my personal favorite top 10 films of this year. It is hilarious. I mean, Jamie Dornan lip syncing and tearing his shirt off is just one of the many reasons you should watch this film, but it's just so much fun. It's about BFFs who go on a holiday that just changes their life, challenges their dynamic, and the whole thing is laugh out loud hilarious.
What is she trying to do? Hope she gives me bigger teeth. Love big teeth. She loves big teeth. Even if it's just two eyes on a bunch of teeth.
Palm Springs. Starring Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti, Palm Springs is a dark comedy that's basically Groundhog Day, but millennial-ified and totally poking fun at all of the ridiculousness that takes place in the 21st century. I mean, it's also laugh out loud, so much fun, but really has a great heart, and you'll definitely watch it over and over and over again.
Run, rabbit, run!
Niles? Don't come in here!
Sound of Metal. Sound of Metal was one of 2021's best films. I mean, you have Riz Ahmed in the lead role of a heavy metal drummer who loses his hearing, and it challenges how he defines himself and how he fits into his community, first as a musician and then into the deaf community, and the struggles that he goes through as he learns to live with his new normal, which I think is something that all of us can kind of appreciate, given what's been going on these last couple of years. But as a personal story of development and growth, it's so moving. Riz Ahmed is incredible in the role of Ruben, and you're going to go on such an emotional journey when you sit down and watch this film. I mean, also sonically, the audio for the film is so interestingly made, and it's one of those films that you will want to watch over and over because every time you do, you'll see a new layer of what this character is going through.
Play tomorrow, let's see what it's like, okay? I'm gonna be like a click track, you can play to me.
You have to understand, your first responsibility is to preserve the hearing you have.
I can't hear you, do you understand me? I can't, I'm deaf! I'm deaf!
Promising Young Woman. Certainly one of the most talked about films of 2021. Promising Young Woman was divisive. Some people absolutely loved it and some people did not. We obviously are in the camp of people who absolutely loved it, as it made our top 20 of 2021. It is, it's very easy to kind of throw some buzzwords at it in terms of its feminism and in terms of the things it says about rape culture, but fundamentally what makes the film so good is that those are things, yes, you can apply to the movie, but it is at its core a sort of revenge drama that centers around one woman's quest to avenge her friend and also figure out how she can move forward in her life with, the trauma that she's been through. And that is such a universal experience. I think we all know what it's like to have something that we struggle with and figuring out how to move forward with it. Obviously, it pushes the bounds of what that, is legally and morally maybe, but it's such a brilliant movie. And the soundtrack, oh my God, you could have an entire video about the soundtrack to this film alone. I mean, pop bangers, just to the wall. It's so good, and it's juxtaposed so well with the narrative arc of the story and of what the characters go through that it's hard to listen back to those songs and separate them from what how they were used. Another wonderful thing this film does is it subverts the kind of nice guy trope in life, but also in cinema. And I think, you know, Emerald Fennell, who wrote and directed this film, had such a clear vision of what she was doing, and it comes through in every single thing, from the writing to the casting to the costumes to the soundtrack. And it's one of those films that is definitely going to stand the test of time.
Okay. How old am I? What are my hobbies? What's my name? Sorry, maybe that one's too hard.
The Mitchells versus the Machines. Netflix has been breaking into the kind of family animation genre that has been predominantly ruled by Disney and Pixar, but they've had a few big successes, and none more so than Mitchells versus the Machines, which is such a beautiful and heartwarming story about a family who have to reconnect with each other, which is ironic given, you know, we're making a video and we're talking about watching a film on Netflix, but truthfully what the movie does once you sit down to watch it with your loved ones is it's going to make you absolutely cherish them and cherish those relationships. And a film that is able to do that, to make that transition emotionally from the screen to your life, I mean, there's nothing like that when you have a movie experience like that. And The Mitchells versus the Machines is definitely one of those.
10 and 2. There you go. My daughter, listen to me! Mitchells have always been weird, and that's what makes us great. Hold on a second.
What's a Furby?
Nomad Land. Nomad Land is movie-making history, and deservedly so. Chloe Zhao, who directed it, won the Oscar, and, you know, since then has gone on to do such incredible work. Obviously, The Eternals, that's absolutely massive, but her auteurship is so clear in Nomad Land, from the way that she films things to the subtle performances that she teases out of every actor in every scene. And Nomad Land, it might not be everyone's cup of tea because it is a little bit, the pacing is something that you have to invest yourself in. But once you do that, the payoff is just incredible. It's such a moving and arresting film, and Frances McDormand gives an incredible performance. And you certainly, if you didn't see it in time for the Oscars, we definitely recommend you watch it right now. Or maybe not right now, once you finish this video.
What the Nomads are doing is not that different than what the Pioneers did.
Hey, Fern!
Gotta make the hole bigger. Say the right.
I think Fern's part of an American tradition.
Oh, he's gonna come right through the glass.
My dad used to say, what's remembered lives. I maybe spent too much of my life.
The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. It might seem odd to all of a sudden throw in the third Conjuring movie? Yeah, third Conjuring movie into the best of 2021, but it is, you know, a kind of return to basics for the Warrens, with Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, who we could watch them together all day long because their chemistry and their relationship on screen is just so dynamic and so, it just captivates your attention. So even if you're not a huge horror movie fan, which I'm not, I actually really like this. I was very lucky. I got to see it in the cinema, and it was just, it's one of those horror films that takes the things that you expect but does them so well that you love the film. It's not lazy. It doesn't fall back on pop scares or jump scares. It does them very well. And I think you have to respect a film that knows how to play by the rules of its genre and does it so phenomenally that you are invested in the characters and you become invested in the story in a way that sometimes genre films, it's hard to do when you feel like you know what's coming. This subverts all of that, and it really is a just enjoyable, fun, thrilling ride.
Whatever is going on, whatever happened that day, that was not Arnie.
It's a witch's totem. We think your family was cursed. And that connection's still broken.
A Quiet Place Part 2. A Quiet Place Part 2, again, it's another sequel and another horror, but certainly one that is definitely worth mentioning in our top 20 of this year. It takes all the things that made A Quiet Place great and doesn't do them again. It uses them as a foundation to build something new and just as tense and just as terrifying. And it certainly was a film that had many people on the edge of their seats. Whether you're a horror fan or not, we definitely encourage you to watch this one because the performances are great and it really expands the legend behind what this movie is and sets up, you know, maybe more for the future. But on its own, even in comparison to the first film, it still holds its own as a standalone movie that brings you into the world and makes you care about the characters and invested in the outcome. Shiva Baby. Another personal favorite of mine. Shiva Baby takes the kind of well-worn trope of drama happening at a funeral and gives a nice Jewish spin, which I obviously love. And it plays out almost like a horror film. I mean, the score, you have to admire kind of the chutzpah, to use a nice Yiddish word, of the filmmakers to, you know, push the bounds of what you expect out of a film like this. And, you know, it takes such a unique view of what growing up is like as a 20-something-year-old and trying to navigate that world under the kind of microscopic lens of your family. In addition, at a Shiva, which is a Jewish kind of mourning funeral thing. And it just takes all of those tropes and makes them fresh and interesting and engaging, and has all of the tension that you would expect out of a thriller or a horror film, but that's not what it is. Instead, it is this kind of coming-of-age self-discovery journey, but it's just funny. It's that kind of cringe funny, like, oh God, when is it gonna end? But you never want it to end because it's just such a fun world to be a part of.
Danielle! Yeah. Look at this. Oh my God.
Are you on drugs?
No, just kidding. Is she okay? I already have a plan and a path,
So you just study and don't eat and go out with your beautiful friends, is that it?
The Father. This is not the last time you'll see Olivia Colman on this list for her incredible acting chops. We stan Olivia Colman. But The Father stars her and Anthony Hopkins, and it's just a heart-rendering drama, and you will weep, undeniably, but it's also completely tense. It's not a overwrought or melodramatic. It's one of these films that allows the premise to blossom slowly over the course of the film in a way that you become wary and invested and scared. I mean, it has all of those elements that you want out of something that is supposed to be suspenseful. But what makes The Father, you know, an incredible film amongst that genre is the characters, is the character work. I mean, you've got national treasures in this film giving A+ performances that you sit back and you watch and go, oh, that's acting with a capital A. I mean, it is just so engrossing and so moving, and you might not want to watch it straight away again, but you'll definitely want to watch it again.
Where's the painting?
What painting?
Believe me, there's something funny going on. Has anyone seen my watch? It's been stolen.
No, it hasn't.
What do you mean, no, it hasn't? You know, it's been going on for some time.
It's me.
Anne? Strange things going on around us. What is this nonsense? Where's Anne?
What are you talking about?
Where is she?
I'm here.
The Suicide Squad. Now, we know what you're thinking. The Suicide Squad was, you know, highly anticipated, but also there was a lot of trepidation going into this film. Obviously, it's not a sequel, reboot-ish type thing from James Gunn. And with quite a long runtime and a huge cast, there were obviously, you know, some nerves from fans going into it, but even if it's not your cup of tea, you have to admire the sheer impressiveness of the scope and the scale of this film. And what we really liked about it in particular was the way that it actually makes the characters the heart of the story. Instead of what so many superhero movies get wrapped up in a kind of plot that has to both serve the individual film and also a wider cinematic universe, the Suicide Squad goes, okay, forget all that. We're going to focus on the characters here. Why are they doing what they're doing? And of course, there's just like ridiculousness thrown in there on top of it. You've got Rex, you've got a giant alien starfish, you've got the weirdest superheroes like Polka Dot Man. I mean, there's something relatable in it for everybody, which is not what you'd expect from a movie like The Suicide Squad. And yet, it really has a lot of heart. It's surprisingly moving, and you'll find yourself, rooting for your favorite superhero, and they will probably die because so many people die in this film. But I mean, you will want to watch it again and again because it's funny and it's fun, and you don't feel the runtime at all. It goes like that. And it's one of those films that, makes you reevaluate what superhero movies can be, and when they're given a kind of an R rating and a little bit more wiggle room to do interesting things and not have to be in service of something greater all the time. And I think that's what makes The Suicide Squad a standout film of 2021, is it's just so much fun.
This is suicide. Well, that's kind of our thing.
Don't you worry, I'm gonna get you out of here alive.
I'm going to get you out of here alive.
People Just Do Nothing, big in Japan. So personally, I was really surprised by how much I absolutely love this film. I'm not a big fan of the show. A lot of people are. It's a very kind of British staple, cultural icon. And for me, that just wasn't my bag, maybe because I'm not British. But also, I think it's one of those films that it was a show that you loved it or you hated it. But what the film does is it bridges that gap between people who know the subculture really, really well and people who don't. And it allows those who kind of exist in that middle space to enter this film kind of because the People Just Do Nothing crew, Corrupt FM, are themselves fish out of water because they're in Japan. And it's really funny. It's self-aware, but it's not too self-serious. You really fall in love with these characters and you watch them, grow, and it's been some time since we left them in the show, and to see how their friendships and relationships have changed or not changed, how they've grown or not grown, it feels very real, it feels very refreshing, and it's surprisingly moving. Again, it's not something you'd expect, but it is. It has some really tender moments and some great comedy, and I mean, you'll find yourself just really immersed and loving every second of it, and we highly recommend that you watch it. Even if you didn't like the show, we still recommend you should watch this film.
The puna might make a kick on with them, MC wind up on the mix hand with them, DJ beat in me right and friend, boost microphone just like an automatic string.
Rap.
ShangChi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So it wouldn't be a best of 2021 list without a Marvel film, and the one that we absolutely had to pick from this year was ShangChi. The action alone is worth, all the accolades. The martial arts that are choreographed into this film make it a complete standout, not only in terms of Marvel movies, but in terms of action movies that, we've seen this year. It takes away the reliance on guns or even though there are superpowers in this film, that's not what the character is relying on. It's a story really about him developing as a superhero and wrestling with his legacy, both from his mother and his father. And that is such a human and universal story that the other stuff doesn't overwhelm it. You don't lose that character arc in this film. And then you do have the comedy. You've got Awkwafina in there, and you've got Ben Kingsley in there, and you have those lighter moments that help provide a foil to the more dramatic beats of the main characters. And it provides a complete story in and of itself. Yes, it also sets up the future of the MCU because all Marvel movies have to do that at this point. They have to fit into that bigger picture. But what makes ShangChi so much fun is you could not see the other films and you could still see ShangChi and get an absolute joyous ride out of it because you get a clear sense of every character. The action is really fun, and there's magic in it that is what we're used to seeing in the MCU, that it felt like a return to form a little bit, and it's going to be really exciting to see what comes next. But you also come away from the film feeling satisfied, feeling like, yes, I had a wonderful movie experience, and I'm not yearning for more because I feel like I was shortchanged. And that's a really hard balance to strike in a film that is supposed to take place in this kind of larger cinematic universe. So ShangChi and the Ten Rings, absolutely worth watching.
I told my men they wouldn't be able to kill you if they tried. Glad I was right.
No Time to Die. James Bond, No Time to Die, the last outing for Daniel Craig in the eponymous role of 007. You know, again, another divisive film. The ending had some people, you know, absolutely ecstatic, and others felt it was kind of weird and not expected and maybe a bit out of character for what James Bond has come to be. But you have to admire the fact that they made this decision and they stuck with it. You know, James Bond is such a cultural icon, yes, in the UK, but also worldwide. He's really, you know, an instantly recognizable character. And this film was a perfect way to say goodbye to Daniel Craig's tenure as James Bond, but it also sets up the future of the franchise in a really interesting way. And nobody really knows what that could look like, but that's really exciting. And I think what No Time to Die was able to do in some ways was wipe the slate clean in a way that was satisfying emotionally for fans who have been so invested in this character for so many years that, you know, it's a hard balance to strike. It's not going to please everybody, but there's definitely something in it for you to enjoy, whether you're a massive James Bond fan or whether you're just kind of dipping your toe into the water.
I met your new 00. She's a disarming young woman.
You ever flown one of these things before?
Nope.
Passing. Rebecca Hall's directorial debut, Passing, stars Ruth Negga and Tessa Thompson. It's based on the Nella Larson novel of the same name, and it is beautiful and arresting, and the acting is just impeccable. And as a filmmaker, Rebecca Hall has such a sharp eye in terms of how she wants to frame every single shot. And one of the things that's really difficult when you're adapting a text, you know, a novel or a play for a movie is how to take those things that, you know, the things that are set up as background in words, you have to translate that visually. And what Passing does, by shooting it in black and white and filming it in this kind of classic, almost Hitchcockian style, it allows the tension to be driven by the characters instead of by kind of external machinations. You really get the sense that all of the drama and all of the tension, all of the despair that these women are going through is internal. Of course, it's informed by the world in which they live. I mean, it is a film about race constructs and how women move forward in them, these two women in particular. But you know the way that fits in the world. You see these characters, you know that they're real, and you can really feel their pain, which doesn't make it sound like it's a lot of fun to watch, but it is, because it's so impressive to watch the acting. I mean, just the talent that is on display here is just impossible to ignore. You feel enraptured and you feel empathy, even when the characters do things that you might not agree with. And I think that's one of the things that makes this film so incredible, is that you're with these characters for every bad decision they're making and every good decision they make, because you can feel their struggle and you can feel them trying to figure out how to move forward as Black women passing or not passing in New York in this kind of very overtly and also subversively racist world. And it is one of those films that will stick with you long after you've watched it.
I'm trying to find out the history of the blonde you've brought along.
She's a girl from Chicago I used to know.
Princess from Chicago.
Things aren't always what they seem.
I'll be damned.
Tick, tick, boom. Andrew Garfield is certainly having a moment, and while most people are, talking about Spider-Man, we have to mention Tick, Tick, Boom, because he is absolutely incredible in this. It is the story of the real-life musical maker, Jonathan Larson, who died very tragically very young, and this film is not only a sort of celebration of all of the talent that he had and the work that he put out in such a short time, but it's also, a mourning process in terms of talent that is unfulfilled and potential that is unfulfilled. And that is quite a hard balance to strike, because most people will know that he's passed away. And so you have to be able to really grip your audience. And Andrew Garfield in this role, I mean, it's one of his best. He gives it such emotional depth without it being overwrought or signposting, which I think is, it's a very tricky thing to do. And there's no way you're going to watch this film and not be moved.
Maybe I'm just wasting my time.
Do you know how many Jonathan Larsons there are? One.
Why should we blaze a trail? There's not enough time. I went to 3 friends' funerals last year, and nobody is doing enough. I'm not doing enough.
Try writing about what you know.
The Power of the Dog. Probably one of the strangest titled films on our best of 2021 list. The Power of the Dog stars Benedict Cumberbatch as a ranch hand, which is probably not what you would expect of him, but he plays a man named Phil who lives the life of a cowboy, and it is one of the most gripping and tense films that you will see this year. It's got Kirsten Dunst, Jesse Plemons, Cody Smith-McPhee, and the 4 of them, they make this film. There's not a lot else. The landscape is so massive, but the plot and the characters and all of that is so intimate that you get this real jarring sense of scope and scale and intimacy and the personal tension between these characters. And if you want something that is going to keep you on the edge of your seat and keep you guessing and keep you hooked, this is the film. From the moment that it starts, you are in this world and you are invested in figuring out what is going to happen next and what journey these characters are going to go on, because you get the sense that even though they're all making their own individual choices in their lives, you get the sense that there's, you know, a greater plan at play. Even if they don't know what it is, and even if we don't know what it is, it's got that Greek tragedy sort of struggling against the inevitable that is just, it's just so gripping to watch, and you come away from it exhausted but invigorated, and that is such a hard balance to strike as a filmmaker, and Jane Campion did an incredible job with this film. Every single detail, from every costume, from the hair to the soundtrack to the cinematography, everything is perfect.
Well, Brother Phil?
Spiderman No Way Home. So obviously we couldn't get to the end of this list without talking, we're not at the end yet, we couldn't get toward the end of this list without talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. Certainly one of the most anticipated films of the year. It lived up to the hype. It, you know, fans absolutely loved it, and it managed to nod to nostalgia without relying on it too much as a crutch. Again, that is such a hard thing to do. And obviously, Tom Holland's maybe last outing as Spider-Man, you know, it's definitely one that people are going to be invested in, and what it manages to do is honor everything that came before it, kind of poke fun at itself, but still be a genuine film that people, I think, will, you know, feel emotionally moved and entertained by. And that's really what you want out of a Marvel film, is, you know, to have that little bit of heart and to have a lot of fun and envelop yourself in the kind of silliness of it. I mean, like, he's a spider, right? He's got spider powers. And I think what Spider-Man No Way Home does is it allows itself not to take itself too seriously and to really, you know, Peter Parker's a kid, and I think it allows all of us to see that side of him as he's growing and to be excited for what the journey of that character will look like without feeling gypped by the film that you're seeing. And that, I think, is really important, and No Way Home absolutely delivers on all of those notes. And of course, you know, it's fun. You've all seen the videos of people cheering. That's the kind of film it is. It inspires that real excitement, and that's just fun.
My entire life got screwed up. Could you make it so that Mysterio never revealed my identity?
You ready?
Whoa, hang on. What just happened?
The Lost Daughter. The last film of 2021, The Lost Daughter, is already out in cinemas, but is out on Netflix on New Year's Eve. And it was my personal favorite film of the year, so I'm really excited to include it on this list. It is a brilliant, tense, character-driven exploration of womanhood, motherhood, daughterhood, what it means to be a wife, what it means to be a professional, and it's all done under the kind of exacting gaze of Maggie Gyllenhaal, who, I mean, has proven herself to be a filmmaker of inimitable talent, and to see what she's going to do next is just so exciting. But this movie, it's one of these films that nothing happens and so much happens, and everything happens at once, and you're on this journey with Lita as she goes on holiday and as she's reflecting on her life, but you're learning about her life through her reflections at the same time that everything else is happening. It's like the opposite of Rome wasn't built in a day. Everything happens at once. It is an epiphany of a film, and you watch it, and in 2 hours that fly by, you learn about the internal workings of every single character. Of course the women, because they are the first and foremost part of this film, but also the men. And I think that's not something you get in a lot of films that focus on male protagonists and their development. The women in their lives tend to be catalysts. They tend to be things that spur the plot or spur the development. But in this case, the men themselves also have so much dimension, and they have their own motivations and goals and desires. And where those come into conflict with the women is what drives the story forward for everybody in this film. Every single character is unique, and you come away from this film remembering everything about all of them. And it's just, I mean, it is one of these films that is going to be, I hope, talked about for years to come, because it is such a wonderful examination of growth and struggle and pain of what it means to be a woman moving through your life in a way that doesn't feel like it's pandering to any one particular ideology or one particular generation or one particular point of view. It really becomes a universal sort of story about womanhood. In a similar way to Passing, it has, you know, it is obviously informed by the race and gender of its protagonists, but when you come away from that to look at this film as an audience member, there is a place for you in that story. There's a moment that you can see yourself reflected back in a way that is moving and gripping and wonderful. And I think this, particularly The Lost Daughter, is what, when we talk about movie magic, this is what that is. It's the ability to take an audience member out of themselves and imagine themselves in this other world that is moving and arresting and visceral, and you come away from it feeling fundamentally changed. And that to me is what cinema is, and that to me is what The Lost Daughter is.
I saw you at the beach today.
I didn't see you.
I saw you.
The little girl lost her doll. She wouldn't stop crying.
So that's it. Those are our top 20 films of 2021. Did your favorite make the list? If it did, you can celebrate in the comments. And if it didn't, you can moan in the comments, and we won't mind. We never mind. But if you enjoyed this video, you can always like and subscribe to our channel for more Digital Spy content. But for now, we're going to say thank you so much for watching. Have a great new year.